Hi, I'm Amber Anderson. I am a leadership coach, and I specifically help highly sensitive leaders learn how to maximize their impact in a way that is authentic, joyful, and expansive through content, coaching, and community. I am so excited for this week's video. I had the pleasure of interviewing Casey Davidson, who is the host of the Hello Someday podcast. Now, this podcast is a top 100 mental health podcast for sober, curious women and gray area drinkers. You are probably wondering, what does drinking and alcohol have to do with leadership development? Well, a lot actually, especially for those of us who are highly sensitive. It impacts our sleep, our happiness, our stress. Casey says drinking alcohol is like pouring gasoline on anxiety. So I highly encourage you to stay tuned to learn more. It is a good one. Hi, Casey. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
So excited to have you. I'm feeling very grateful. I know you are a busy woman this time of year, especially. And your podcast is brilliant and very successful. So I hope that you can tell us a little bit more about that. But I'd like to always start by asking you to introduce yourself because I certainly can't do you justice the way you deserve, I'm sure. So tell us a little bit about you, what your business is, who you serve, all those good things.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah. So I am a life and sobriety coach at Hello Someday Coaching. I help successful, busy women drink less and live more. I work with a lot of high achieving women and also working moms who have gotten into the habit of coming home and opening a bottle of wine to sort of transition from work to home as their way to relax and also see it as a way to keep going, and they can drink while multitasking. You can drink
Mm.
while playing Legos or cooking dinner or, jumping back on the computer at the end of the day. And that's what I did. So I quit drinking 8 years ago
Mm.
after being a bottle of wine a night girl for many, many years.
Yeah.
And if you're listening to this, it doesn't actually matter how much you're drinking. We'll talk about how it affects women and the benefits of even taking a small break from alcohol to see how it impacts your nervous system and your mental health and your life. And I will say that if you happen to be drinking more than you want to or more often than you want to, you are absolutely not alone. I can't tell you how many women drink on a regular basis, including 3, 4, 5 glasses of wine a night and don't talk about it
Yeah.
and just keep telling themselves that get a handle on it. I'm going to make this rule. I won't drink till the weekend. I'll take a break and have trouble sticking with that resolve. And we can talk about it, but there's a very, very good reason for it. So I was that girl. I didn't have any big crisis that made me finally stop drinking. It was the death of a thousand cuts. My anxiety was really bad. I was waking up at 3 a.m. every day. I wasn't remembering the end of TV shows I watched, or my husband kept saying, we talked about this. And,
Mm.
I was like, I'm so busy with work and the kids, and I do everything. And, I just wasn't as happy as I used to be. So I took a 100-day break from alcohol and felt so much better. I kept going.
Amazing. And you read my mind because I was going to get to, but we can just dive right in there. I was going to ask you about the benefits of a break versus quitting. And I'll share a little bit about selfishly why I'm asking. It's for me.
Mhm.
Because my husband quit drinking altogether about 4.5 years ago. And I tell the story all the time. I joke around about it because the two of us were in Nashville for the weekend. I had to go for work and he came with me and we extended the stay over the weekend because neither of us had ever been. And we were staying just a block off of it's Broadway is like the crazy busy street, right?
Mhm.
Which is not my scene at all. So I don't know what we were thinking to begin with. And he just woke up one day and was like, I'm gonna not drink anymore. I'm like, who quits drinking halfway through a weekend in Nashville? Like
Ah,
that's so random. but he just decided and he stopped drinking. He was reading a book at the time about quitting drinking. Since then, I've quit several times temporarily. And I've never quit with the intention, like, I'm never going to have a drink again. Um, for probably the past 10 or 15 years, I wouldn't consider myself a heavy drinker by any means. But like you were saying, the glass of wine, I was going to say while I'm making dinner, but if I'm honest, while I'm watching my husband make dinner, or, settling into the show or to like take a soak in the hot tub, just one glass of wine, maybe two glasses of wine. So I never thought it was a big deal. And I keep thinking, what is the point of just taking another break? Because I'll quit for 30 or 60 days at a time. Like, are there health benefits versus if I'm going to do it, should I just do it and like go all in and quit drinking alcohol? Because I know enough to know there's no health benefit. Like, it's poison, whatever, whether it's one glass or one bottle, right? Um, but you mentioned the nervous system, and that's kind of where I want to start because, as you know, I also coach high achieving women and men, but mostly women in corporate. And a lot of the people that I work with happen to be highly sensitive leaders, meaning our nervous systems are just more sensitive than, I hate to use the word normal, but like the other part of the population. So
Yeah.
about 20% of the population is considered highly sensitive. So we are different than the 80%. We're
Mhm.
more sensitive to sights, sounds, smells, fabrics, things like that. When I learned that I was highly sensitive, I started to connect the dots between those evenings where I had a glass or two of wine, um, and my anxiety, my sleep.
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
yeah. So like, what do you know? What can you tell us about the impact of alcohol on the nervous system?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've talked to highly sensitive people in the past on my show, and what I've found is that for a lot of highly sensitive people, alcohol can be like a mute button on the world that's too loud. It's a lot of people use it for that. You mentioned people who are highly sensitive being sort of easily overwhelmed by strong sensory input and very affected by other people's mood. I know that they're bothered by loud noises and chaotic scenes, and which are a lot of parties,
Yeah.
obviously, and also maybe more prone to anxiety.
Yeah.
And I certainly experienced a lot of that. I was a director in a Fortune 500 company. I felt like alcohol helped me stop my racing mind at the end of the day, my endless to-do list, my anxiety, my wanting to be hyper vigilant. And the substance itself is very interesting in that it is both a depressant and a stimulant.
Mm.
So when you drink alcohol, the reason that people feel like it's a mute button is because it literally slows your brain function.
Hmm.
That's what it does. So you are essentially putting this, I like to describe it as this bubble around you, right? That's why driving when you're impaired is tough, because your reflexes are slower
Yeah.
than they would. It just takes an extra beat or a lot more of a beat, for depending on how much you drink, for things to hit you to some extent, right? There's this delay, and that can be very attractive to
Hmm.
people. I know it was to me. That said, it's also a stimulant. And so there is a reason that if you've ever had too much to drink, you wake up at 3 a.m. with a lot of times just crushing anxiety, or you can't go back to sleep. And that is because an expert who wrote a book on alcohol in the body, his name's William Porter, described it to me as you're driving along at a constant speed, and then you hit a patch of mud, like a longer patch of mud. And so you often push down on the accelerator to maintain that constant speed. And when you come out of the mud, you shoot ahead really hard. And that's sort of what happens with your body when you drink. So it alcohol does a couple things. One, if you have as little as a single glass of wine, it decreases your sleep quality by 20%. If you have 2 glasses of wine, it decreases your sleep quality by 40%. So many of us are so freaking tired,
Yep.
all the time. And when I look back, I was a daily drinker unless I was trying to not drink, right? Be good, cut back. I'll only drink 3 times a week. But even if I only had a glass of wine 3 times a week, I would be getting significantly worse sleep, worse quality of sleep than I would have otherwise. The other thing that alcohol does is there are 3 things. It spikes your cortisol, which is your stress hormone. And we're talking 1 glass of wine a night, it spikes your cortisol. So it's like pouring gasoline on anxiety. And we think it's helping our anxiety. We really do. So if you don't drink, you will actually feel less stressed and less anxious than you do if you do drink. It takes about a week for your cortisol levels to even out without alcohol in it. And you won't see that unless you remove alcohol for a period of time, 30 or 60 days. The other thing alcohol does, and I'll stop talking after this, is it spikes your dopamine really high, your happy hormone. So in the same way that like cocaine or heroin does at a lower level, yes. Sugar also spikes your dopamine at a lower level. But what your body does is it wants to maintain a balance. So alcohol spikes your dopamine level really high, and your body will suppress your natural level of dopamine in your body. It does the same thing. It suppresses your level of serotonin, which is all about mood regulation. Yeah. So it takes 30 days for those 2, things to even out. If you stop spiking your dopamine with alcohol, it'll take about 30 days to come back to your natural level. So you are both more anxious when you're drinking than you would be normally. You're sleeping significantly worse, and you are not imagining it that you are less happy and more irritated when you're not drinking. But that's because of the alcohol. So I didn't even know, I would take 7-day breaks, maybe 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I had no idea what my normal level of contentment and joy was when I was drinking. And I remember being 2 months alcohol free. I used to go through life thinking like, I hate my life. I need to quit my job. This is a nightmare. I'm burned out. By the way, my job was a piece of work too. But I was better able to handle it once I stopped drinking. But 2 months after I stopped drinking, I was walking into work at 8:30 in the morning. I mean, we're talking in March in Seattle. So it was not, the most gorgeous, but I saw all these birds take off from this field near my office. And this like joy came over me. And I just thought, I love my life. And it was such a incredible 180 from where I was before. And the only thing I changed was removing alcohol.
That is incredible. And it just made me realize something about highly sensitive people. We face unique challenges, but we also have unique strengths and unique gifts. And one of the kind of traits or characteristics of that trait is that moments like that, like the birds or, a bunch of butterflies or beautiful music or beautiful scenery, like touches us deeply, like to the point that we, bring tears to our eyes. And it's really fascinating to think without the effects of alcohol on our nervous systems, how much more beautiful those parts of our high sensitivity could actually be, and how much more we could just appreciate, life as it is around us.
Absolutely. And it's kind of amazing, when you remove alcohol for a time. And I'm obviously a sober coach, so I very much encourage women to take a break of 30 days. 60 days is better. Like I said, you're just scratching the surface at 30 days of how your normal level of happiness and contentment is.
Mhm.
Or 100 days is my favorite to start with, because you have to go through a vacation, an anniversary, a birthday, something big, a holiday. And with the commitment to being alcohol free, you get to contrast and disabuse yourself of a lot of your limiting beliefs that I won't have fun if I don't drink, or I'll be boring, or I'll be bored. And you get to see that you really do experience things in a different way.
Mhm.
But taking this break, it's a really tender and transformative time. And the truth is that alcohol numbs your feelings, but you can't numb the bad without also numbing the good. Like when you stop drinking, it feels like everything is almost in technicolor. And
Mhm.
that is very, very cool.
Yeah, that is so cool. And it's such a good point you make about the 100 days sort of being a sweet spot, because there has to be some sort of event or experience in that break. I don't know, you didn't use the word but to like challenge you, but something,
Yeah.
to get through, which is funny because I've always planned my breaks to avoid, like, well, I'm not going to
Yes,
take a break now, my birthday's coming up, or I'm not going to take a break
absolutely.
now, we have a trip coming up. So I've been doing it the opposite way. I'm
Yeah.
sure I'm not alone.
Well,
But
and your
that, I mean,
husband
it's
can
such a good point.
probably tell you a lot about it, right? Have you read whatever book it was that he was reading then?
I did. Yes, I did read it. And that was probably my longest break, is right after reading that. My brain, and I'm a mindset coach as well. Like I'm a
Yeah.
leadership coach, but it all started as a mindset coach. So I know my brain is offering me 10 million excuses, but my reasoning, the excuse I always make with myself is I only drink a few drinks a week anyway. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. Um,
Mhm.
but it
And
does.
and in my mind, it is a personal choice.
Hmm.
We all do things all the time that is not amazing
Sure.
for us, right? I think that information is power. And I think that, the way I looked at it is I know what my life looks like when I'm drinking. I know the
Hmm.
highs and I know the lows. I have no idea what I might accomplish or feel or do if I took 100 days alcohol free. The other reason a longer break is useful, other than your body will feel very different. And I feel like, hey, you go back to drinking, no one's taking the alcohol away, you will have that information. So
Yep.
you know, when I stopped drinking for the first time, it takes a while for it to stick.
Hmm.
Um, I took 4 months off. It was because I felt like I couldn't cope with my life. I felt like I couldn't separate the things I was unhappy with from the clarity I needed to get without alcohol. I mean, so I went into my therapist's office and I said, "Oh my God, anxiety, my boss, my husband, my schedule, my kids, my job. And by the way, I drink a bottle of wine a night." And he
Slide
was
it in
like,
there.
"Let's talk about your drinking." And I was like,
Yeah.
"You didn't hear me. Let's talk about my boss."
Yeah.
But that was the first time I stopped. And then I got pregnant. And so I stopped essentially for a year. But if it was really only 4 months without this like forcing factor of being pregnant. And
Hmm.
at the end of the year, I said, I feel better. I'm happier. My relationship is better. Like I'm less stressed out. All of this, I have better coping mechanisms. And therefore, in my mind, I can go back to drinking
Ah,
because it was situational,
yep.
right? It was not alcohol. It was like my boss, right? Or my job, or you name, my husband was not helping or whatever it is. And the second time I started drinking again and got to that same point of like burnout and pessimism and, why am I angry? I have a beautiful life. I knew it was the alcohol. I
Yeah.
had that information. So I stopped again. I actually worked with a coach, a sober coach, because I am terrible at doing things on my own, meaning like I hired a personal trainer. I'm just
Yeah.
not, I take
Yeah.
classes. Um, I needed external accountability. And that time I knew that it was the alcohol. It wasn't anything else. That was
Yeah.
why I felt that way. So it is entirely up to you. Obviously, if you want to take a longer break or not, if you've done 30 or 60, I encourage you to do 100. The other reason that I like that is someone mentioned to me that it is similar to 30 days. It's like taking a commuter flight. You're going from DC to New York. You don't buy a snack. You don't recline your chair. You don't download a movie, nothing. You are just sitting there waiting for it to be over. Maybe they bring you a Diet Coke. Probably not, right? Whereas 100 days, we flew to Africa, a year ago. And it was a long flight to Germany, a 13-hour layover, and then a flight to Southern Africa. You plan for that. You settle in. You're like, okay, how can I enjoy this? We downloaded multiple movies. I bought new books. I got one of those foot things that you hang off your tray so your feet are comfortable. I mean, when you go 100 days, you're like, all right, how am I going to enjoy this? What am I going to do with my time? What am I going to shift with what I do with my friends? Do I take up running? Do I start meditating? Do I go on road trip? You know what I mean? You've got a
Yeah.
lot of extra time.
Yeah. I love that. The flight analogy. I had to giggle because I used to travel internationally a lot for a previous job. And my planning for my trips to Hong Kong were essentially drinking and then miserable experience between hangover and jet lag. So you have a better,
Well, like they give you, the alcohol or the club or the
yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
I mean, and in an airport, it's like time doesn't matter, you know?
exactly. I,
And
yeah, go ahead.
when I go to the airports now and everybody goes to the bar, I sign up for those massages, those 20-minute massage. Oh my God, they're
Yeah,
great.
love it.
Those people are better than you think they are. Like,
Oh, for sure.
I'm just like, I get my peanut M&Ms. I read books that have no redeeming value. Like I have the media
Yeah,
taste of a 16-year-old girl when I'm not reading about self-help and alcohol and,
same.
all that stuff.
Yeah. I just had a girls' weekend this past weekend with there were 5 of us and 2 of us traveled together. I'm in Michigan and we went to Asheville, North Carolina, and we were joking that at the airport at 6:30 in the morning is it's like the only time it's appropriate to drink without abandon at 6:30 in the morning. No shame, bar, handful of people lined up in the bar. And we're like, what is it about flying?
Yeah,
It's
and it
so
does
interesting.
such bad things to your body and I
Yeah.
mean, there is nothing worse than a hangover. There truly isn't.
Yeah.
The other thing I will say, just to put a thought in your mind if you're listening to it, dry January is coming up.
Hmm.
1/3 to 1/5 of American adults have participated in it in the last 2-3 years. I mean, it is a huge movement. Last year, there were all these stories about dry January, sober curiosity in everything from Vogue to Women's Health to
Yeah.
NPR to the New York Times. This is a big thing to do. Try it. And there are amazing non-alcoholic beverages out there. This is not, your grandfather's O'Doul's. Athletic Brewing Company is
Love it.
incredible craft beer, like
Yep.
literally my favorite. You can now find it at dive bars and fancy restaurants and Major League Baseball games.
Hmm.
There are really fantastic non-alcoholic Prosecco's and bubbly rosés. You can buy non-alcoholic vodka and spirits and, all these
Yeah.
things. Corona has 0.0 beer, Guinness does. So there's a whole universe where you get the taste, but you're just switching out the ingredients.
Yeah. And I find for me, because I did sober October as the last time I took a break, and I came up with a mocktail that I would make every
Yeah.
evening. And it's just holding the wine glass in my hand while my husband's making dinner. It was kind of the ritual, that habit. I didn't actually need the wine. It was just the habit of it. But we have a whole liquor store, but it's all alcohol free here
Yeah.
in Grand Rapids, Michigan. So there's wines, beverages, liquors, and things like that, all NA, which is great. So I just noticed too, my aura ring, this was like the first time I really believed like the evidence around alcohol and the impact on my sleep. And because my sleep scores are
Yeah.
are significantly lower if I have even one glass of wine. So between that and the work that I've done over the years with like dropping into my body and kind of managing my nervous system as a highly sensitive person, like I had mentioned, I really can feel the difference when I wake up always between 3 and 4 in the morning with this debilitating anxiety for no
Right.
reason. No circumstances have changed in my life, except maybe I had a glass or two of wine the night before. And
And like
so,
that's making your life so much harder if you already
yeah,
have a stressful
yeah,
job or a lot of responsibilities or an overwhelming schedule.
yeah. And, using alcohol to numb, I love the mute button thing. And I just kind of pictured like turning down the dial because for work, I've had to do a lot of like networking events, and I'm also an introvert, like layer. So social lubricant,
Yeah.
alcohol is, but
I
just it
actually
turns
did.
down the volume, turns down the
Oh,
volume.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, go
No,
ahead.
I did. My podcast has like 200 episodes. So I've talked about all the things, which is my favorite. But I did an episode with a woman I met at a podcasting conference, which is all the networking, all the party or whatever. And it's an introvert's guide to non awkward conversations without liquid courage,
Love it.
and just all these questions you can do, advice about how to take breaks. The other thing is like your need to mute the overwhelming world, like that is real.
Yeah,
It's just sometimes we lean on alcohol, which is a maladaptive coping strategy. For some people, like earplugs, noise canceling
yeah.
headphones, taking breaks, breath work, there's so much you can do
Mhm.
without, by the way, getting hungover the next day or getting more anxious or not being fully present and remembering your interactions, because
Yeah.
that's hard too.
Yeah. And that's all the work that I do because I work with people from a skill set, a leadership skill set perspective, a mindset perspective, because you have to be able to manage your mind in a way that actually enables you to make the changes in your behavior to implement your new skills. But then from a nervous system perspective, to continue to widen our window of tolerance for all of the incoming stuff.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
that's so important.
yeah. So coupling that with like keeping the alcohol out of it and actually doing the work to widen your window of tolerance, um, I think it just makes sense. So I'm thank you so much for talking to us about it. Um, I think it will be really helpful for the people that watch this YouTube channel and my highly sensitive leaders and just leaders in general. Because, like you said, so many high achieving women, especially, really do lean on alcohol just to cope with life. So knowing that dry January is coming up and many of us might want to, take a stab at it, what tips do you have for us or what resources? Because, tell us
Yeah.
how can people find you and more about you and what you do to lead us into dry January?
Thank you. Yeah. Well, the best place to find me is on my website. It's hellosomedaycoaching.com.
Okay.
There, I have a completely free 30 tips for your first month alcohol free guide. So you can just get it sent directly to your inbox. It's a great place to start. I also have an online course with a course membership with group coaching that is opening up enrollment for dry January. And you can join at any time in January and February, but we have a lot of extra support and bonuses starting at the month of January. Um, that is wonderful. It's just for women. It basically gives you all my tips and tricks to not only stop drinking, but find other ways to amuse yourself, express joy, cope. Boundaries are a big
Yeah.
thing that women need, how to overcome people pleasing, and how to make fantastic zero proof cocktails, and how to talk to your family and friends, and what to do on vacation. A lot of this work is mindset work because we've been brainwashed to believe that a beverage with alcohol is somehow inherently more valuable and appropriate at different situations than a beverage without alcohol. But the other place that to find me is Hello Someday podcast, wherever you listen. And I have a lot of really powerful episodes coming up in January, as well as content specific to dry January.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And I have been binging your podcast, and it's so well done. It's so informative, and it's just, thank you for putting that out into the world as a free resource for people, because I know that you are helping so many people through your podcast alone. So I can't even imagine the quality of how you help people inside your programs. So thank you
Oh,
so
thank
much for
you so
sharing all of
much.
that. Of course. Okay. Thank you so much for stopping by. I will talk to you soon.